Okay, that's fine.
No, it's next week.
With everybody.
Everybody's signed up.
Are you gonna do another one? Yeah, I do. Is that the one that Shabir sent us or not?
That's for something different.
I want my stamp down. I mean, it was still like that.
Oh, yeah, the workshops.
Yeah.
Yeah. We opened it up to 20 more seats and then they moved it from here down to the edge of chaos. Added 20 more seats.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to do another one, whether they want to or not. They're going to have to do another one because it was so popular. And, you know, like I said, the 20 extra seats that we had, they were recommended.
Yeah, because I mean, as soon as I got the email, I sent them and it was full.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, wow.
So I'm sure they will do another one, but I'll text Kenny that.
I don't know if it's the same.
Penny's doing an IRB workshop.
For how to do the form.
Yes, like that. I'll let them know.
I gave up. I get then some of the people around me. I can't make it in the stairs right now, but yeah, but I need to get, so I had to update, that's where it's, you know, on the council, trying to get them out, you know, I'm doing our competition. So,
It's the first time, a long time ago, the guy who was from Norway, time out, and went on a little holiday in Canada when I was in Boston. And his visa had expired, we didn't know it. And he came back for 2 to 3 months until he got the paperwork. Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So this morning we're very pleased to have Isabel Scarinci here. Dr. Scarinci is professor in the Department of Medicine, Division of Preventive Medicine. She has a very active research program largely around cancer disparities, but focused on reducing health disparities in cancer and other diseases. She's been particularly active in a type of medical research called community-based participatory research. She'll talk a little bit about that, not much, but we'll have a second session several weeks from now that'll focus on that particularly. She has multiple leadership roles at UAB. She's the Associate Director of the Cancer Center for Globalization and something else, cancer. And she is the Training Director in the Minority Health Research Center. She's been very involved in our programs for a long time, and she's very happy to have dialogue as we talk. So please don't hesitate to interrupt. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, David. Good morning. So this will be an interactive session, because if you're quiet, you're going to go home in 10 minutes. So, so before I start, I know most of you are, all of you are in the Clinical Translation Academy, right? Okay. Most of you are physicians.
A third? No, half, probably.
But most of you do clinical research.
More or less, not everybody.
Okay. So I want to hear first, you heard a lot about me, and you hear more about me. what I do, but first I want to see what expectations we have for this talk. So I put something together that all my talks I tailor to the audience. Because there's something that drives, I learned that over the years as you get older. If people start falling asleep, it's the worst thing for a speaker. And so that's why I want to first hear from you what your expectations are and what you would like to get out of this today.
The title of your talk, I work in children's, and so most of the consenting that I do and getting people on board is with the parents, so gaining their trust about, entering their child into some research study is the big one.
I got the school when we're sitting, and my area of weakness is in college programs that was usual abortion, particularly in minority populations. So given that minority populations are often in a vulnerable position, plus being trying to cope with the difficult diagnosis, that's another layer. And I'm new to UAB and all that, also thinking about recruitment issues and retention.
And I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you some points, and then we probably can have a lot of discussion as well, because a lot of it is practice. Things that we learn by doing it, and we're still learning. So we have gone from children to end of life. So any other thoughts or expectations? I'm not participating in the hard one. So, any other thoughts?
Maybe if you could just speak to the whole concept of informed consent. Such an interesting issue in the sense that who is really truly informed. A lot of people would argue any sort of physician isn't informed, but also see physicians who are treated who would potentially argue that they weren't informed with the treatment that they went through. Balancing that with the clinical trial, with the research, and wanting to learn more, we don't necessarily know what all the potential side effects or adverse effects could be, but also the adequately informed people. Just kind of that tension, but also wanting to approve people.
Yes, yes. And I'll touch on that. I have more on consent, but then Jean said, well, somebody else is going to focus on it, but I can focus on consent because we have learned quite a lot on that too. Other thoughts?
I have a sort of general question about the challenge of if you're working in a population that's very different from who you are, whether it's almost essential in order to get trust to bring the colleague who is more like the population you're studying, or whether you can succeed without doing that.
We talk a lot about that one. I work in the Latino population here, and African Americans. So those are the two populations over in the South. And I say with the Latino population, I got Americans for life. With the African Americans, I usually do my vows every year. And I can, because it's true, we are not one of them. And it is more challenging. So we can touch on that. So, I'm going to give you this. So, I'm a psychologist. So, today is going to be a lot about self-reflection and for us to think about ourselves first. So, I'm going to give you this. There's a tape here for a reason. Don't cheat. So, don't remove the tape. and I'll give you the instruction. You participate too. And does everybody have a pen? Because we're gonna do it. If you can, for us to start, we're going to come back to this. We're not going to share this with the group. This is for you, so don't worry about it. I want you to put the initials. You may not have 10, the 10 people that are your top 10 people that you trust. Cannot be a family member. Cannot be your spouse. Cannot be a family member. You just put the initials there of people you trust.
Well, friends.
Friends, yes, absolutely. Not family.
Okay.
So this might be getting into too much detail, but trust to keep your confidence, trust to be my help your proxy.
Trust. People that you trust. People that you invite, that you would let drive your car, that you would give the keys of your house, or that you would share. It doesn't need to be that people share your intimate secrets, but people you trust. Like, what's your name? Pat. I say Pat, well, who are the people you trust? It's not a trick. It's not tricky.
The one that allow my kids to be
Yeah,
at their
that you
home.
allow your kids to be at their home. And that you allow in your backyard. Just the initials. This is for you. And we'll come back to that later. I need to make a list of initials of people you trust. And I cheat. And you can put that aside. We're going to come back to that later. Come back to that. It doesn't need to be Pam. I did this with my husband last night just to see how it went. He couldn't come up with Pam, so. Okay, so David and Jean asked me to talk about special populations and gain your trust and cultural competence. I'll talk a little bit about informed consent, but if y'all want to spend more time on informed consent, I'm open to it. And I can tell you the lessons learned in the U.S. as well as abroad in terms of tailoring consent forms. So, but I want us to first start kind of getting our minds around. This is for research. So if you have a patient that comes to you, usually at least you have a lot of times, especially if you're a specialist, you have some history there. Right? It's very rare, unless you're a primary care physician or pediatrician, that you walk to the office and you do not know anything about that patient. Right? Is that true? For emergency room. But for research participants, a lot of times when a research participant comes in that we haven't even done eligibility yet, we know nothing about that person. Right? And we need to kind of go on our instinct in how we approach them. And I have some pictures just for us to start. How would you approach this lady? She came for, she came for the end of life. We're gonna color this a little bit to your study. Guys, if you don't participate, I'm telling you.
How we approach, like, start talking. I would say, how are you doing? It's a good start, right?
That's
If we know a little bit context of, let's say, so it's an end of life study, so we need to get the conversation to that topic, obviously, but we don't want to start from there. Should we ask questions like, do we already know her name?
yes.
We already know her name. So her name is
Elsie.
Elsie. How are you doing, Elsie? I'm fine. How are you feeling? Really good. No, just start from there.
Anything about how that gives you any hints?
She's religious. She's religious. That's fine.
I'd also introduce myself.
That's very important. For you to introduce yourself, and we'll talk about that. Now I have a kid for your study.
I always like to get down on their level and play with them and make them feel comfortable. That also makes the parents feel comfortable if you can, make their kids feel comfortable.
Any hints?
Happy.
I only have a few. Another elderly. This one is for early Alzheimer's. Still cognitive. I'm making this up as I go. He still can make a decision for himself. Any hints on his?
Yeah, the pen, obviously. That's the pen.
Like to take notes.
Solving some cross puzzles.
I think this is the last one. This one is a veteran.
I thought that an engineer.
This is it. Come on, I have one more. Let me pop some of this one.
So when you talk to these people, you want to establish a rapport, right? That's the goal. So you can talk to them about your study. Now we have general assumptions. Say this guy looks a little younger, maybe he's into something else. We kind of change the topic. We change our dialogue and just, maybe we get down on their level if they're a kid or talk slow if they're old. But I think that's just kind of what we do every day anyway. So, if you talk to your little nephew, you kind of talk different versus your grandma. So, I don't.
Who has kids here? Who has more than one kid? Do you treat all your kids the same?
No.
You love them the same.
I'm not sure what to do.
You may love them the same, but do you treat them the same? If you say you do, you're lying, because you don't. Because a lot of times we need to make adjustments, and I appreciate your comment. And a lot of times, and that is what we'll be talking a little bit today, we make those adjustments on assumptions. You know, from the person who walk in, you know, and we do that. All of us do that. And if you say that you don't, I can recommend at least 3 good psychologists in town because you need help. We do. I do, you do. I think of years ago when I started working with, when I came to Birmingham, work with Latinos, and I was going to do an event at Cooper Green, and an outreach event, and we need a translator. And I got there with the women, and the Joanne oncologist, he was ready to go, and I said, there was a room, the waiting room with the Latinas there, some African Americans here, no whites. And I was in the middle of the waiting room, and the physician came out and said, Isabel, we're ready to go. I said, yeah, but we're waiting for the interpreter. And this African American girl stood up and said, are you Dr. Stevens? He said, yes. She said, I am the interpreter. And so, because she was African American and she was sitting in the waiting room, I didn't even thought about walk in and say, is the interpreter here? And she said, today she's a physician. She went to medical school, and I still use her as the example because I made the wrong assumption. You know, I was not expecting an interpreter to be a young African American. And those are the things that I'm sure you have a lot of examples of every day how we make assumptions. I'll tell you a funny one, very interesting that happened to me. I went to the DMV. I had polio. I walked with a cane. And, you know, when you go to the DMV, you block the day, right? So I had like khaki pants, t-shirt. I need to get my driver's license. And I'm the honorary consul of Brazil. So I need to get my consular official card. And I went in and I talked to there was 2 lines. I told the lady, I said, I need to renew my driver's license and I need to get a consular official card. And she said, what? I said, a consular official card? She said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, a diplomat tag? And she said, well, he needs to come in person. And I said, I am the diplomat. And she was like, really? So, I mean, it couldn't be a woman, much less you. So, and those are, so I put this there, that these are our special populations. You know why? They are special people, but they're my family. So, and we want our research participants to be treated as a family member would be treated. And a lot of times, I think that is what we always need to put ourselves in somebody's shoes. A research participant that comes in a lot of times, especially if they look very different than us, they are very scared. And if it's clinical work, even, you know, they have a disease, there's a lot of other things going on, that it's very important that we train our staff well, that we observe our staff well. When I don't do consent anymore. I don't know some of you do. I have staff to do it. But it is my responsibility that staff is trained well and is trained on those social skills to establish rapport. And I'll go back to what comment that David made. A lot of times, if you look different, you need to put a little bit more effort. You and I that have an accent, we need to work harder. But the moment we say hello, they're going to say, where are you from? And I have been here for 30 years. So we need, because that's reality. We can pretend all day, but that is reality. And that trust takes a little longer because we establish from the get-go that we are different. And if I am different, it's gonna take. If you say it's not true, I'm happy to discuss, but this is observations of years of work. So, and a lot of times, a lot of the assumptions we need to make are just the tip of the iceberg. You know, it is, we do. I look at you, you look well dressed. You know, you must be a little more more educated than him in blue jeans, checking on his phone, not paying attention. Really not paying attention. So, and those are the visible things of culture that we usually make judgments on. It's the skin color, the dress, you know, games, and there are a lot of other attributes that unfortunately we do not have. We cannot see it in a first encounter when we are consenting or recruiting that participant. So, but a lot of it is about common sense and making this person feel important. So I'll talk a little bit about cultural competence, and there's more interaction in a minute. So every time, everybody feels that they're culturally competent. And when I give those I give a whole talk just on cultural competence, and sometimes when it's mandated, it's the ones I hate because people are there just because they need to be there. So, but cultural competence this is one definition, is the ability of healthcare systems to provide care to patients with diverse values, beliefs, and behaviors, including tailoring delivery to meet patients' social, cultural, and linguistic needs. It's a very big definition. So who is familiar with Title VI of Civil Rights here? Language accommodation. If you have a patient that does not speak English, it's a federal law. I didn't make the law, is that you need to provide language accommodation. If you get any funding from the federal government, Medicaid, Medicare, so that is our responsibility. What the law does not address is the quality of the language accommodation. The law does not address that. So at UAB, we use a lot of the language line. I don't know, recently, y'all can tell better than me, we have very few interpreters that was in Spanish. We do not have, I speak my first language, I speak Spanish, but it's Portuguese. So you're not going to have a Portuguese translator there. What's your first language?
Turkish.
Turkish. I'm going to pick on you and I sit in the front.
Right.
So, but it doesn't matter. If it is whatever language it is, you need to provide that language accommodation. And that, but we do have issues with that accommodation because, let's say for research participants, let's say you have a child with sickle cell anemia on, what is that medication?
Hydroxyurea.
Yeah. I don't know if you can pronounce. I mean, it's a high risk, right? I mean, you don't want to just have a language line with that parent. You want an interpreter there to make sure that that parent really understands. Now, if you have a trial on a survey about physical activity and healthy eating, that's fine. It's having a language line. But when they need to make a big decision in a research study that has risk, that's high risk, that is not an exempt protocol, that's usually my rule of thumb. No. For sure, if it's not an exempt protocol, if you went to the full board, you need an interpreter there, and all your materials need to be in that language. So that is kind of where, that's where you use your own, judgment as well.
I don't know if you want to take the conversation in this direction, but when I saw the word tailoring, I thought of the conference that I did into last fall, the Society for Medical Decision Making. And some of the findings that were coming out that I was really surprised about was that they were finding that tailored interventions for decision support were not that patients pretty much wanted their values to be considered, their preferences to be considered, information and things like that, but it was more the consideration of those issues, not that the intervention itself was tailored to a particular culture. So we're not talking about linguistic culturing, but that was new to me. I didn't know if you've seen that the cultured interventions weren't as successful as just having an intervention that considered the information.
So that's, I think, yeah, I see what you're talking about. I'm a behavioral. There is some evidence, for instance, in that some, in different issues, decision making, I don't know, like food access decision, or practice, some of, the cultural adaptations. Tailoring here is not that tailoring, but it's meeting their values and their needs. So that's why that initial conversation of what is important to them is important, but it's in a much more soft term here than what you're talking about. So what is cultural competence? It's a process. I don't know if we ever become totally culturally competent. It's a process that involves a few steps that I'll talk about. And this is the model. I'll talk about each component with you. So first, we need to have the desire, right? So we need to be able to, we want to engage in the process of adapting needs. I gave a talk to a group here a few years ago, not in the medical school, actually across the street, and they say, I remember this guy said, I want to open a practice in Mountain Brook because I want to see clients who look like me. That's fine. That is completely okay. If that is your choice. Now, if you're going to work in a place like UAB, or if you're going to work in a place like Princeton, then you're going to work with diverse populations. But us as private practitioners, that is the person that we choose who we want to see. Because when I'm used to see patients, I refer patients, I work in tobacco, they have a very other substance abuse. I refer. I didn't do qualified. I would not be able to help that patient. So the first thing, I think we need to be open to it. The second is know our values and know ourselves first, that we all have biases. And it's not saying I don't have any, it's just being aware of them and how strong they are. And that is also very important because if you have a very strong bias, what have you, if it's religion, if it is rural, urban, or what have you, if that is very strong as part of your upbringing, then you don't need to announce to the world that, you just say, I don't want to work with that population. I am not going to work. I'm going to think, I should have said that from the beginning. It's the Brazilian in me that I point to people, so it's part of my culture. So, and I don't know any of you. Never seen you before. So I do not have any bias with any of you. So if I use examples, please do not. But, if you have difficulties to work with African Americans, you're not going to do sickle cell anemia research. You don't need to tell your chair, I don't do sickle. And again, I'm not picking, I'm just using as an example. So we need to really be aware of our biases. Substance abuse, I couldn't help them. I hate work with substance abuse. And it would show. I have no patience for substance abuse. And that's my bias. You can judge, but I am aware of it. So I need to stay away from those patients because I work in chronic pain. So it looks like the more I avoid the substance abuse, they would come. Because then when I work in pain, you're going to get the substance abuse. So that is very important. And then it's important to have some knowledge. Are we going to know about our cultures? Of course not. And not because I am Brazilian, I am typical. You cannot generalize that I'll behave like any Brazilians here? Other Brazilians. So, but I think a lot of it, I have not met a person that you ask about their culture, especially if it's different than ours, that they love to talk about it and love to educate you. So, and one thing I can because I can say, oh, I never met anybody from Turkey. What is like, tell me a little bit about Turkey. Okay. So as he's talking about Turkey, he's telling me about himself, which is giving me information on how to approach him and what is important to him. Are you from the South? Yes. Who is not from the South?
I'm from Idaho.
Idaho. So that's, it's like, oh, Idaho. What can you tell me? I don't know anything about Idaho. So don't tell me a lot of potatoes. I know that. But if you tell me a lot of potatoes, that is information. This is a guy who does not want to talk much, right? If he's saying a lot of potatoes, you're like, so that is kind of actually, this is a very good way to actually to start the conversation. Is you say, I don't know anything about it. I would love, to know something about Idaho or some piece of information that you know about Idaho. But also we need to be careful. So there is the line. So I'm going to give you a lot of examples because those are anecdotes that I've learned over the years. We started a project in the Mississippi Delta in WestStat, where it was through NIH, so that WestStat needs to manage, and was this we're on the phone trying to decide a logo for the program, for the community program. We love having logos. And y'all learn English now, and in clinical research, you love to have acronyms. My colleagues spend hours for their studies thinking of acronyms. So that's the difference between the population base, we like logos, we like drawings. So, and we're on the phone with some people from the Delta, And this young woman said, the study is on self-collection for service. We're going to go door to door and screen women, self-collect for HPV testing. Women who are not coming in for their that test. And this young woman said, oh, we can have cotton. And when the moment she said cotton, I was like, I said, well, let's think a little bit more about it. And I changed the topic. I knew the moment we hang up, I was going to get a call from the Delta. And sure enough, this person was so offended that, the African American used to pick cotton in Mississippi. So to her was the most offensive. But the moment, and then I said, she's young, let me call her, so I called, and she was from Indiana. So she was mortified when I told her. Yeah, I presume that telling her the history about the South, that was an interesting conversation too. So, but she was mortified because in Indiana they were very, if you have the corn as a symbol, or the potato, you're very proud of. But the cotton in the Delta was not, and she's like, should I apologize? I said, no, let's leave it alone. Move on, like nothing happened, and so a lot of it, this learning, it's an opportunity that for you to start a conversation. And then it's the awareness of our own bias and what I learned about, a little bit about your culture, things that I put together, that I moved toward cultural competence. So by no means, I wanted to give you the impression that because I have a Turkish research participant coming in, I need to get on Google and find out how about Turkey. You may come in and say, I hate that place, I don't want to talk about that place. It may happen. And then, it's very sensitive and respectful. That is an obvious one. So all this together, so is cultural competence. But when we talk a lot about cultural competence, but to me, really cultural competence is common sense. It's me being respectful of you as a person, but acknowledging, especially if you're different than me, it's very important that you're the first one to acknowledge, because then the person says, oh, he gets it. So one of the things, and I'm very opinionated, but one of the things that really I have a problem with is, if I need to work with the African American community, and I'll tell you a lot about it, is that I hire an African American person as what I call, and I'll be a little exaggerated for impact, a lieutenant. Well, the community knows she's not in charge, I'm in charge. The community knows I'm using her to get there. That's obvious. So now, do I hire her because she knows the culture and she can relate and can help me? Yes. But especially communities, I spent a few days in the Delta last week. I want them to know me, that I am in charge. I am the PI, and I am committed, and because I can make commitments that she cannot make. So I can make decisions that she cannot make. So, but it does take longer, yes. So that is, if you're going to work, you learn about that. Two messages today. Title 6, language accommodation. You don't, that's one of the things I want you to take out of this lecture today, is because we do not want to be, we already have got investigated UAB for not providing language accommodation, because it's your decision as a provider. But it's UAB that gets sued. And the feds come He's not. What's your name?
Steve.
Steve. See, Steve, I will remember. Now, your name, you're going to need to say 10 times, but I'll forget. See, that's a great interaction. See, he had not. That's all right, Isabel. So, I mean, those are, you see the nuance? So there is a interaction. You know, I offended him, but he answered back saying, I remember your name, and it's okay. You know, so, I'm not.
I have a question. Last week, I think the speaker, she mentioned we try to stay away. Like, acknowledging bias is important, obviously. We all should do it. But the more we stay away, the more we orphan those research projects. I mean, if everybody's staying away because we acknowledge our biases, then people are not doing research in those areas, and adding interpreter at some other cost. So don't deal with that population. Somebody else will do. And you know what happens when we think from that perspective? My question is from author of saying all this. Should we push ourselves to get better about our biases, like cultural competencies? Should we learn about other religions, other cultures, so we kind of take care of our bias, and so we can do research in those areas? Isn't it our responsibility to do that?
That's your choice. I don't know responsible. I think, of course, I'll be the first to understand that it is our, I see it as my responsibility. I came to Alabama, so, and I have a choice which populations. I can comfortably work with the Latinos. For African Americans, I'm going to tell you, it's harder for me. It is much harder. I need to think, I need to be more, I need to measure my words a little more, and it's true. So, but you have also a choice of to say, I think I am the only researcher that in the community work with those two populations in school medicine. So I don't know if I'm brave, stupid, or both. But because so I chose to do that. So once I chose to do that, then I need to face the challenges of doing that. But it's okay. Say, I'm going to do research in, what's your area? What's your field?
Health services research.
Oh, so you're more broad, more specific here. Who's a specialist here? What's your area?
Pediatric ICU.
Okay, well, we don't choose the patients that come in. So, but you can choose to work with certain groups, and that's your choice. It's okay. Or in health, not you, because I saw that you have this. You say, I don't work well with people. I'm going to do healthcare research, give me data. And that's fine too. So we need to know, we don't know everything. And we need to know where our skills, our strengths lie. So, does that make sense? Any other comments from your insight? So, and that's how I'll come together. So, if you do have a resident, a fellow that say, I am not comfortable working with that family. That family, it gives me the, we all have those, you can hide it. But those people that just say, get away from me. I have had, people that were assigned to me that were border. I can stand borderline. the drama, the dramatic, and it's like, get away from me. Right? You know, so I don't say that to the person. May say I'm not be the best mentor for you, Dr. Chaplin, motivation. Well, you know, I'm gonna talk to him. He probably will be a better match. But you're gonna have situations where you say, I just, and it's okay. You just kind of then get somebody. We only have this. So we're gonna go back to my trusted pen. We're gonna go back to, now you can open, and you're gonna fill out the other column. Again, you're not gonna share this. This is just for you. So, for the people who came late, sorry, just you put the initials of people you trust. Don't open that yet.
Okay.
Cannot be your family members. And it doesn't need to be pan either. Once you're done with that, then you can open. This is for you.
So we're taking for age, you're doing the top 10 of the trust.
The people that say, let's say that I trust, no, never, this is very, let's say ICS, I trust Isabel Scarinci. And then you're gonna put my age, approximately, my education, whatever you wanna put there.
Okay.
My race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, marital status, and if you would say it like that. I'm not gonna ask you to share, so. This is your own exercise. You need a pen? That's okay. Now you can open. So what are some of you? Some of you, when I do this, some of you, no. Anybody want to share any insights?
Sure. I realize that I don't have any, I all have white. As far as I'm kind of shocked a little bit. Half of them are PhD. So it's like,
like I said, you don't need to share. I want to, you can share, but anything in science.
we tend to choose people who are similar to us. That's what I.
That most people experience who have a different experience. You don't need to share the details.
Most of mine are older than I am. The people I trust are older than I am.
Mm-hmm. So usually that's any other insights.
Mine are women. Mine are women.
How about the man? Mostly men? How about the other women? Mostly women? So usually, I like that exercise is more because that is, and you don't have a drawing here, but it's our circles of trust. So we have the small circle, is the people that we really trust. And it's small in any culture. It's very small. In some cultures, maybe a little bigger, but it's very small, the people we trust, besides our family members. And then those are the people that we are close with, that we talk in a much more relaxed level because we don't need to be as guarded. And then there's the middle circle, the people that we get out a little bit. And then definitely our out circle, the people that we socialize once in a while, go for a drink that you're never going to know, really who I am. Maybe are the people that you're not. Anybody in the Department of Medicine here? When we go to the drinks, those are the people that we go when we can let you go. Once a month. Anyway, the happy hour that the department does. So those are, so they use that a lot in the corporate world too. Now I am using this for the research for our own weeks, and usually these people in our inner circle are the people that we like to work with us. For, in the corporate world, for management positions, so you end up having people around you who think like you because they look like you, and they're going to have ideas like you. So in research, this has been shown, the most productive research teams are the ones that are very diverse. You want people in your research team that think different. They may be a pain in the ass, and I'm sure I am one of them, right, Jean and David, who know me well. But you want people who think different. I want somebody who thinks different than me, because he's going to see things that I don't see. We had a meeting yesterday for my project in the Delta. Think about that. My colleague from Harvard is Korean. Well, let's think of this. We have the program officer, the district officer in the Mississippi Delta is an 80-year-old Italian man who runs the health department in the Delta. Ed Partridge, African-American researcher. So we had a long call because everybody had different how we could better do this project. So I thrive on research teams that are thinking different. And I look for those people. Because if they agree with me, I'll be bored. And I don't think I can do, great research. So think about that in this is what you did. If you do in corporate, I did this with people at the consulate, it's the same. Because those are the people that we
Don't you?
So, any other thoughts? And when I say, okay, I'm sure you have talked about this with gene science. When we started a few years ago, we probably had our ones. We were pretty much alone, had some staff. Those days are gone. You're not going to get, it's unlikely, I don't know your area, at least in my area, an R1 where you have, if I have another, it's me, I'm the PI, and then I have another psychologist. No, I want to have the decision-making, the cost-effectiveness people, and then like this project scratching my mind because we're about to start. The epidemiologist, the GYN oncologist, the district officer, the nurse that will be helped. So that is the kind of grant you're going to write. That you want not only different fields, but people who think different than you. It's trusting. It's a little more intense. But it's way more fun. I think at the end of the day, we get better work. Now, I want you to think about any other comments about gene science, but I'm going to change topics for this exercise. Okay, so now I'm just going to change topics, and we're going to talk about what I came here today for. It's a research participant. So this is the definition of research participant from Wikipedia first, and I'm going to read it. A research participant, also called a human subject for an experiment, trial, or study participant, or subject, is a person who participates in human subject research by being the target of observation by researchers. I say, Isabel, you're a researcher, why did you go to Wikipedia? So then I went to OHRP. That gets worse. That is our guide, right? The OHRP. It's human subjects, it's a living individual about whom an investigator conducting research obtains data through intervention or identify private information. When you see the description here, what words come to mind? That's the definition. I didn't make up one, did I? A lot of things that come. Participation.
Interaction.
Is there an interaction here? Or is it a one-way street?
One way.
We observe, we obtain data, we obtain private information. It doesn't look a two-way street to me. So, what else? Jordan?
Like when they say human subject, it doesn't feel very human to me. It feels sort of like the difference that we talked about ecology and research and participant versus the subject. These definitions sound more subjective.
So this is a person who's, I want you to, it's always when in doubt, put yourself in somebody's shoes. When I make any decisions for my staff, my research, I always say, I can never be in your shoes, but I can say, well, if I were to, how would I respond? And that helps. I was discussing, I have a fellow that I mentored that wanted to do HPV vaccination in pregnant women yesterday, and we had a lot of things. I had a lot of concern, and it was actually a funny interaction because I said, for me, if I were pregnant, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put anything extra in my body that I don't need to wait until I'm postpartum. She said, but we are supposed to be objective. And I said, well, I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of those women to kind of first just think through this. So by definition, all of our research participants are vulnerable, right? We are in charge. They came in for participation. We are going to obtain the data. We are going to do whatever we're going to do with them. And they might not even, most of the time, are not going to even directly benefit from our research. So, and then we say, gosh, then we need to gain trust. Well, how are we going to gain trust? If not even we trust the people who look like us. And a lot of us, especially for us who do research with underserved communities, they don't look like me. They can be an immigrant. They can be a Latino. Actually, it's even questionable if Brazilians are Latinos, but that's a whole other talk. So, so that is that person that walked to the door. And here we have the consent. We need to get through, right? We need to get that participant enrolled. And a lot of times we do not think about that person coming through the door. But it's all good. I'm not going to discourage you. And that's where we come with these special populations in the city. I have an issue with the special populations because to me, all of them are special. I share a lot of my personal experiences because it helped shape me what I do today. And all of you are going to have your personal story. If I ask you to, what's your area?
Exercise and class.
Exercise. You know, to go, like today we have a talk at Tuskegee to motivate our undergrad students to do cancer research. But let's say there was exercise. You're going to go tell your person, you got into exercise research. There is a personal story behind it, I hope. Because if you want to do a research just because it's a niche, and nobody, you know, I don't see that it's very hard to be passionate about. So special, everybody is special. I grew up as a special, child. I had cold in both arms and both legs, so I couldn't participate in PT. They would send me, and all the kids went to PT, I went to the library. But it helped me, because I was a very good student. But I was reminded twice a week how different I was. They were protecting me because I couldn't run, I couldn't do the other things that the other people. Yeah, nowadays they would never get away with that. But in the intention, I know the intention was to protect you, from getting hurt or making fun of or what have you, or make it easier for them. But so that's what we need to think about. When we think about special populations, is everybody will come to the door because everybody has a story to tell. From the drug trials FDA perspective is women, pregnant women, elderly, pediatrics, and neonates. That's the definition. Because it's linked to regulatory process. Blame the lawyers. For NIH, as all of us need to do that table that we hate, because we need to keep counting, and it's women, children, and racial ethnic minorities. So in general, it refers to disadvantaged or vulnerable populations that we work with. And a lot of us in our research, those are the groups we work with. But my message here is those are the groups who look different than us. And we look different from them. So from where they sit. So what are the special populations in your research? Yours, you mentioned children.
neurologist, and I deal with a lot of patients in our studies that have neurodevelopmental disabilities or nonverbal or minimally verbal, and oftentimes their guardians or parents have to consent for them, and so they're basically making all the decisions very much like in a child, but they're adults and they will never be able to.
For the end of life, do you bring a family member to help in the decision?
So that's part of the question that we're asking. Oftentimes, family members are involved, and we look at the family as the patient rather than just the individual with the condition. And more services are being provided after the patient has died, because then they understand that the palliative process includes bereavement. But in terms of my specific work, I'm especially interested in African Americans because there's not a lot of African Americans who get palliative care services. And given the benefits that have been documented, we want to reach as many people as possible.
So the participant consents. Not, you don't normally to bring the family.
In terms of consent, the family member might be there, but it's usually the patient who's consenting, unless there is a person on our team who's focusing on family members specifically. So they are the participants and they would consent.
Any other special? So there are special. Now the special populations that is the ones that we need to make even an extra effort, right? By law even. So with parents, for instance, that child may not benefit from that study. And that is harder, I think, to really convey the information to their parent. That's why we will get you the consent form. We can make the consent forms as simple as possible. Because if you have a child with developed and the parent needs to have that 4-page consent form, it's that the child may not even benefit from the study. That is a hard one, and we'll get to that. What barriers do you see in your research for participation? What are your barriers? In your own research.
I think that sometimes it's tough for patients to understand exactly what you're trying to look for in the consent, regardless of what it says. We tend to find that out after the fact.
What else? Other barriers. Nobody has barriers with recruitment there? Then you can teach me. What are the refusal rates in your studies? Are you doing any studies? Are you doing any research?
Not everybody is really in it yet. I'm just planning.
So, and I will talk about some strategies. So this is a study we did. Regan, who ran in my division, is the first author paper. I work in cancer. So, and you know, recruitment retention of patients in cancer trials is a challenge. All the cancer centers struggle with that. Our recruitment of racial minorities in therapeutic trials is a challenge. Actually, now our cancer center has been a model in the country. We have navigators that I can, actually Ed Parker's takes all the credit for that. He has figured this out in Mona Fuad. But we went and did qualitative interviews first with principal investigators, cancer therapeutic trials only, not non-therapeutic. And we asked them what the barriers to, we asked cancer center directors, principal investigators, referring clinicians, and you can see that the majority are, one is distrust. This is what they think the barriers are, and then unmet transportation needs, language, low educational level discomfort with some of the trial participants. And you can see across that the whole continuum that only they're referring. Did you see these are our, as we say in psychology, external locus of control? None of them is their problem. It is the distrust from the patient, it's the transportation from the patient, it's the language, except for the referring clinicians' lack of, I don't have training, or I have completing obligations. And that to us kind of went the alarm bells to say, can't be out the problems without the patients. And then we got another one to really train the staff and cancer center directors who work with 4 cancer centers to address this, because we were kind of surprised that none of them thought that they may have not been doing a good job of approaching the patients. And that I don't have the results for you. But this is another study that we did I do non-therapeutic trials, so because I do population based. So we want to know that African Americans and Latinos, healthy volunteers in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, and Puerto Rico, were willing to participate in cancer-related studies, and what they would be willing to do. And I'm gonna just, it's just to show, this is our sample. We did urban and rural, and we did 50 for 50 rural, 50 in those sites, and we recruited to be equal. We recruited in place of school, church, and where people go. People go to work or school, church, or social gathering, shopping. So this was very surprising, because what we hear from physicians is African Americans and Latinos are not going to participate in research. Well, when we ask them if they have been asked, they're never asked. So only it's about African Americans were more asked, but this also explains what you're saying. A lot of people stay away from Hispanics because of the language, and I agree. Unless you have your shop set to receive, your house ready to receive this group, instead of doing a halfway job, it's better not to do. So that is what we got. Then we asked the ones who said, yes, I have participated. Now, the ones who have been asked, did you agree to participate? And then you can see, it varies, but it's at least 60%. Urban African Americans have more of a distrust, but was most significant differences. And then we ask for the ones who participate, then of course the N gets very small, what their experience was, and it was very good. So lesson learned here is you don't ask. So they are not, so if you ask, they'll do it. And then we ask for barriers. So this is the literature. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is the literature, and this is what we found. And this is healthy volunteers. So a lot of them is the time where we saw overlap is time commitment and fear. So it goes again, fear and distrust. One can argue that go together, because it's fear of being a guinea pig, fear of finding out they have a disease, or fear of side effects. That's things that we can address when we recruit them. And this would be the facilitators. So that is harder with parents, because a lot of them, it's about helping others, This is the community is a way to get free medical care. That's a motivation. And get more information and awareness. And we got the same, get free exams, information and awareness, and altruism. That's what we found. So I'm sharing this with you to say if we are prepared and if we approach them, most people are going to say yes. When we did the door-to-door survey, the door-to-door study in the Delta, we need to knock on 1,000 doors to get 100 women because although the Delta has a high burden of cervical cancer, 75% are being screened. So it's the 25% that's the burden. We got 3 refusals. But we put a lot of effort on the recruitment. And so that is the key for your studies in any special population. Get them in, get their input, go back, does this work? And if you have, before you start the study, don't sit in your office with your colleagues to decide how you're going to recruit in the Mississippi Delta or the Black Belt of Alabama or the Latino immigrants. You need to get their input, and our recruitment has really been phenomenal. My recruitment in the Latino population, my retention is over 90%. My retention in the Black Belt is over 80%. So, but we put a lot of effort thinking about all the strategies up front and getting input and buy-in from the community. Things that sometimes you do not think about, they do. Those are the questions that for you to think about. So know who your special populations is going to be. You know, if you already know what the challenge is going to be as a clinician, I'm assuming you see them as patients. So take that knowledge and saying, I know these are the ones that I already anticipate. Then build in on your grant. It's totally acceptable, affirmative phase of I'm going to get input from the target audience. I'm going to recruit patients from my clinic and ask them input. You'd be amazed, the insights, because they have a lot of insights. And a lot of times, depending on the clinic, they become your recruiters. If you get their buy-in, they start kind of disseminating the word. For you to think why they are special populations and what you need to do to enroll these patients. What do you know about this special population? Can you imagine me going to the Delta and have the logo as a cotton thing? No, I'll get killed. So those are things that we need to think about. And when you ask, so like for our first study, the medium for them to transport the sample, you know, they're helping us to develop the device for self-collection. And the medium was, one woman said, is that toxic? And we said, yeah. And she said, we can't have, I mean, if you're going to be at home, because they're doing self-collection at home, that's the problem. So then we need to go back, not me because I'm a psychologist, but the epidemiologists went back and they found out that mouthwash would work great. Now, if we didn't do all that affirmative, we would not know that mouthwash would work and work perfectly. Clearly, be very clear what your recruitment strategies are and your retention. That your entire team knows what they are. Because if you are not reaching your goal, then you have something of, okay, what's not working? So then you can go back, okay, so very few, especially in my area, they outline their recruitment strategies and retentions very clear. And like very detailed, how you're going to approach patients. I role play with them. So before we get out there, so we're going to make mistakes and we're going to learn new lessons, but we try to anticipate them. I treated recruitment and retention strategies as a behavior change because it is a behavior change. They need the same way you want to quit smoking. It's a behavior change. The decision of participation in a study is a behavior change. So we use, and anybody who's interested, I can share you a lot of materials on how we think through this. And usually, and I'm using this example of the one we're just starting because we literally started last week. I do it in 3 months. And I have been to the Delta. I already did the pilot. This is my randomized trial. So I already learned a lot of lessons on the pilot. We're doing 3 months just to think about all these details and pilot our strategies. And then I think that is the main question is, why should I trust you? You know, and this is my philosophy, and some investigators here may feel different. I wanted them, the community, to know who I am. That so they know up front, there's no suspicion of, oh, she's not coming because she looks different. Then that, of course, there's already distrust. And who is this investigator? A foreigner with an accent, not African American. Why does she want to work in the Delta? I mean, if you're living in the Delta, where do you live?
Birmingham?
Tell me a neighborhood.
Avondale.
So if you come, you live in Avondale, and I go and knock on your door to participate in this study, and you say, where do you live? I live in Mockingbrook. So why do you care about my neighborhood? Because I'll be asking you the same question, right? Why are you in my neighborhood? Why aren't you working in your own neighborhood? So those are the things that we need to think about. And as long as we are upfront, I think are you the only one who do population rates here? Anybody else? Okay. So for you to do clinical, educate your colleagues. Be passionate. Show the passion to your colleagues. They will recruit for you. So if other neurologists see how passionate you are about epilepsy, be in their forefront. Other pediatricians, because we're all very busy. But then I say, Steve is recruiting. He's interested in, as I come across, I say, we need to refer that. It's what is in our radar. But people buy, I may be wrong, but I think you need is passion. You need to be passionate about. And I think that you get people in. Now almost done. Do you have the appropriate research team? You may have the best staff, but you put them with a participant who say, when I was in Memphis, I mentor our training graduate students in clinical psychology. I was one day, he knew the manual of clinic disorder session by session. Working with a patient, he was a great student, but didn't have, so you need to have the right team. There will be the ones that are very good with data, but you're never going to see the patient. There are the ones that are the social butterfly. They can sell ice to Eskimo. You want that person because you can train. I hire people that work for me on personality. I hire for personality. I train them on skills. My best program director ever that worked for me. When I recruited her, she managed buildings, apartment buildings. And the personnel officer said, that was crazy. She does not have any of the skills, some manager. And I said, I have a good feeling about her. And he said, you cannot hire somebody with a good feeling. And I, what do I need to write it down that will justify? And what they said was Latino immigrant, she spoke Spanish, and that's how I hired her. I trained her. Then she got her MPH, and then moved back. Today, she is the program director at management program in globalization cancer. I can send her to any country. I mean, she has the skills. She has the people skills. Now, and I'll say that in front of her. When I ask her to write a paper, and she said, that's not my thing. And I'm like, well, I can live with that. You know? So those are, those hire for personality, especially if you're sending those people out. We can train anybody on research. Well, most. Train them. I mean, you need to address up front how important it is to you as the PI that your participants are treated with respect, fairly. That message. It's a simple message, but then your staff know that that is a value to you as the PI, and they're not going to mess up. If you talk to my staff, they're afraid to death of me. I don't know. The other thing is, this is critical, especially if you do clinical work or population-based. Show up unannounced. And that they know you're going to show up. We all of us, deviate from protocol. We all do. You know what's your area? Oncology. You know the protocol to what kind of patient? Let's say ovarian cancer. Do you deviate from protocol? We all do. So staff is going to deviate from protocol, and you'll be surprised. You train them, and then you show up, and they're different. And then when you build a research team, you know everybody's strength and everybody's weakness. I'm not going to give Allison another paper to write. I'm wasting my time. She's much better off, more useful for me to go and set up our new project in Colombia than writing a paper. Then I find a postdoc for somebody else to write a paper. So know that nobody's going to have all these skills. That's why even in your team, you're going to need a research team. Now, most of you are doing investigators, your studies, they help you build that team. Start with one. And then you build on. Any questions or comments? But you want people who are sensitive to other people's needs. And you can sense that in them. You're going to make mistakes. I'll help you interview them. Know your biases. This is very important. Be aware. We represent our organization. This is one of my biggest challenges. Is being a UAV. Because when I started my project, I was in Birmingham with African Americans, and I went to this man I was going to have a group in the community to help us to put the program together. This man let me have it and remind me when we let it. And it's true, African Americans die on the street when we deny him. Is it 30, 40 years ago? But if you are 70, you remember. And now you come here to, this guy. I remember to this day. Call me foreigner, the same thing. What, you're a foreigner, why do you care about African Americans? I put my arm next to him and I said, Mr. So-and-so, I don't need you in the same color as what you care. But I understand, I got it. So, a few days later, I'm in my office, somebody knocked, I looked at him and I said, oh gosh, he came here to finish the job. Like, hi! And then he said, you got a minute? I said, yes. He said, you know, I did my homework on you and you are all right. I'm going to give you a chance. And I said, all right. And he has become my biggest advocate in the community. I even got the award from this work that I'm most proud of is from the NAACP, that I was the only non-African American there. So, but I earned, and it was very hard because he was right. He was protecting his community from somebody like me, who was probably just interested in getting some data and getting the hell out. So, was he wrong? No. But those are, so I learned, and and I'll say this to Dr. Watts too. I make the commitments in the communities, Isabel. I learned. I'm UAB. I can't speak on behalf of UAB because God knows what they're going to do. You know, I don't know. We have a good leadership, but I don't know. So I made the commitment. But that hurts us a lot of times. The good thing about the Latino community, they don't have the history of the UAB. They love UAB. It's very easy to recruit. And I hope we keep it that way, that we don't mess up. Never assume that you know what the participant needs. That's why that rapport is very important. Ask questions, ensure that you get it obvious. We got 2 slides. So this is, I put that in because this is how I do a lot of, for the Latino immigrants, that are new, I do some education about how to navigate the system here. How our health system is very different. And so, but one of the things that I talk to them about is how to choose a culturally competent provider. So I'm going to tell you what I tell them. It's not about research, it's about ask questions and observe the provider's behaviors in response to your questions. Does he show empathy? Of course, in Spanish, I make it much more simple for the community. Does he ask questions to understand what you're saying? Does he paraphrase, he or she paraphrase you? Does he kind of use your words to make sure they are understanding you? And then provide feedback for your provider and address concerns about your care directly and objectively. So that, to me, when I choose my doctors, that's what I look for. Probably you don't want to be my doctor because I'm not a patient. But I want to make sure that he or she is listening to me. And the same with the research participant, or you're just interested in getting a number. So I think that is very important. That's all I have. Now, consent forms, because I took that out because they're going to have the IRB. We have, in my opinion, and I don't get paid by the IRB, we have the best IRB that I ever worked with in my life at UAB, in my opinion. They are wonderful. Has changed. It was not like that when I came. Has changed drastically. I don't know about your experience with the IRB. Mine has been, under the new leadership for the past few years, has been wonderful. So before, they are very open. Before you put your protocol together, you know it's going to be sensitive and there are things you're not sure. Go make an appointment. Carrie Oliver, she's gonna hate me for recommending her. She's the best. She's absolutely the best. I just went in 2 weeks ago. We have a project in Egypt. And so, of course, our consent form is 3 pages without the headings, right? Egypt wants 1 paragraph this big. I'm not lying to you. It's like, great. Now I have 1 pair. It's a focus groups. We're doing focus groups that we want to. Egypt does not have colorectal cancer. Organized colorectal cancer screening, so we're doing focus groups. They don't even do colonoscopy, just to promote FOBT. So it's a very low risk, right? We're going to do focus groups with people without a history of colorectal cancer, kind of to develop these strategies to promote FOBT. So they said because of religion, because of the culture, so literally this. And here I have 3 pages. So I went and sat with Carrie, and because I need to show our part, I'm not from that culture. Our PI is, it's Mona, but that's this component is my responsibility. Now, it's Egypt. So, I'm a woman, I'm Christian, and I need to be aware of that. I don't speak Arabic. I don't know much about the Egyptian culture. At least I need to show that I am willing to negotiate with them, right? They're going to be my partner. So I went in with Carrie, 1 paragraph and 3 pages, and I explained to her where can we compromise with them. I left the RB with a consent. This big, no signature, and no headings. So pretty much needs purpose of the study, benefits and risks, confidentiality, and who they need to call. And because it's focus groups, I'm not getting their names. I don't even need them to sign the form. So those are the things that if you have concerns about the language, is the parent going to understand? Our RD, at least has been my experience, they are willing to listen. And I took her actually to Brazil because we're having a lot of, they are there, and I'm from that country, but they sometimes being from the country hurts you because you think I sold myself to Americans. So I was being too harsh on that. So I said, all right, our RB, I said, I'll bring the assistant director here so the IRBs can talk at the same level and see where we can compromise. We left the meeting that they had more requirements than we did. So, and this was years ago, all my projects in Brazil run like clockwork. So a lot of it with IRB. So go to Harvard. I work with Harvard. Go and say, I have concerns about this language. What can we, once you explain, they are really willing to negotiate, not negotiate. Help, find ways to, I mean, I did not know that the headings were not critical. I found that out 2 weeks ago. All those headings, for instance. Now, of course, if you're studying medication, then it's a little more complicated. But I think that is the lesson that I learned is, and I need to do that because, as David said, United Community is participatory research, so a lot of times the community decides on what we're going to do. So when I do my protocol, I don't know what the study's going to look like. IRB hates that. So that's how it started. Saying, but that's how educating them, and it was a process. Now they totally accept that. We do it in phases. Phase 1, we're going to do this. Then I'll come back with an amendment when they decide, and another amendment. And it takes a week to get approved. So in terms of consent, who's getting the call from the RD?
She came, actually, it was last week, and Carrie.
Was Carrie? Did she talk about that or no? She's gonna kill me for it.
A little more history.
So there is, I mean, we need to be reasonable. I mean, the purpose is to protect the patient. Reason is to protect the institution. So we need to be reasonable. But write what you think is reasonable. You know your population. They don't. So you are the advocate for your patients. And they have been amazing. I can't say anything else. But then also, when they get the protocol, they know it's not this, even though it may not be clear in the protocol, but they have talked to Steve and say, oh yeah, I remember. And then sometimes one of them will say, Dr. Swinson, you didn't clarify. Then I kind of, but it makes it easier, especially if it goes to the full board. Because if you didn't do that before, you need to wait for the next meeting, and the next meeting. And I mean, you'd be doing this. Other questions or comments? Anybody who works in another language here? You do need, it's not getting your secretary to translate to Spanish. You need somebody with credentials. They don't require certified translation. There was another long fight with RRB, and our students cannot afford to certify translation. But you need to have somebody with a degree or some credentials on the language to be able to do that. Other questions, comments? Was this helpful? Did it meet your expectations? Because that's how I learned. What was not helpful? I have to fix it. The lecture this year is different from last year because I learned. They gave me feedback. Was this helpful? Contribute to anything?
How do you teach a new person how to do a consent interaction?
How I teach. Now, first time is the person with skills.
Sorry, I guess I didn't say that very clearly, but how do you make sure that when someone goes into interact with a potential subject, that they handle that interaction effectively? Because I think one of the things I'm not familiar with them, there are opportunities for people to show and observe and sort of learn by watching.
Yeah.
Or whether it's a sort of has to be a self-taught thing.
And for my community work, any of you are, to let me know, you are welcome to come with this. But usually, I mean, the first step is, like any of us, I mean, you need to have a layout of what the visit's going to happen. It's not going straight to the consent form. So you say, Mr. Chaplain, thank you, you know, first I'm going to ask you some questions to make sure, after I did this, you know, make sure you're eligible for studies and explain that sometimes research, we're very strict, and I'm going to ask you some questions. If you're eligible, this is what's going to happen. And then this is what's going to happen. This is, because then kind of, it gives people anchors. You know, today, you know, let me see if I did it. I don't remember now. Oops. Now I didn't. See? So, but usually, you know, I do an outline and I ask like, okay, this is what we're going to talk today. What are your expectations? So, at least you know, it's 2 hours or less. And so I think that anchor is very important. You know, oh gosh, knocking on Mr. Linda Paul. You know, this is what's going to happen to them. And if you're not eligible for the study, it will be very quick, but then it's going to take approximately. Then they say, you know, I don't have time today, you know, or, but I think that is first, number one, critical to see, okay, this is what's going to happen today. And I don't believe any good physician will do that in clinical care too. But if I go in that I think it's a 10-minute appointment, you know, and you need to do all the tests and this and that, almost like, not today. So, so the other is, depend on the patient. You may kill me on this, but depending on the patient, if the patient is illiterate, so even it's interesting, illiterate people have a better memory than us. So then because we're lazy, because we know how to read, so they memorize. So usually he has the consent, I have the consent, and I don't read it. I say this here, explain it, blah, 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 here, but he is following exactly where I am, because when he takes home, he can show it to his daughter, but he or she. So if he's a little patient, a very educated patient, so that's why I don't treat everybody the same. You know, he can annoy the hell out of me if you're going to read a document to me. Yeah, I just did a study in, I had my mammogram. I started, I said, no, I can read it. Give me a minute. So you need to gauge how you're going to, they literate, this is very important, the pointing, but I don't read it, and I don't train myself to read it. Because I need to, now I know, kind of talk to him a little bit, I know his, especially Spanish speakers, a lot of them are illiterate, even in Spanish. I need to use the language that he's going to understand. I'm not going to say we're going to put a catheter. You know, they don't know what a catheter is. You know, we're going to put a port. And what is a port? A port is the Port of Mobile. So I kind of. Well, thank you very much. 10 minutes. I did great. So thank you for your participation. I hope it was insightful, and the feedback that you do in writing, I read them. So and it helps me to do better. So and my email is Scarinci, my last name anyway, UAB.edu. So I can be of any help. I'm available sometimes. But I'm very committed, as David knows, to the younger investigators, because we need people to replace us soon. So, and we want good people. So if I can be of any help, I'll be happy to provide you with some insight for your own research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't realize you did a lot
Oh,
in Brazil. So,
yeah, I'm really happy to go. I have an R1 that's going to be reviewed next week. Well, for this one, it's the third cycle, not completed, and now Brazil is not eligible because a lot of them, Brazil is no longer a low income, it's an upper middle income country. So. Oi, tudo bem? Ah, você é brasileira também, não? Não. Ainda com minha. Ah,